2 weeks later, Chizaram was discharged and they went to her grandparents' house. Her grandparents were surprised to see her. Chizaram, what happened? But before her grandparents could speak, Chizaram ran to meet her grandmother. Chizaram's grandparents were furious on hearing what happened, and the fact that they hid it from them. They almost sent Madam Oluchi out of their house. But for the first time, Madam Oluchi swallowed her pride and begged, "I'm sorry, it was a mistake." But Madam Oluchi had questions. That was the main reason why she was there. She stood frozen outside the small house, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Chizaram's grandparents sat on a wooden bench, their faces filled with anger. The little girl who had just been discharged from the hospital clung to her grandmother's wrapper, her eyes darting between her grandmother and Madam Oluchi. Madam Oluchi struggled to find words. She had always been powerful, feared and respected. Yet, here she was, speechless. The scar on the little girl's back was not a coincidence. It was a family birthmark. Her son had it. She has it. And now, this child. Her knees trembled. Her lips shivered. The truth was staring her in the face. Chizaram's grandmother cleared her throat. "Madam Oluchi, you have been standing here. What exactly do you want? You have brought her back to us. Thank you for not killing her. You rich people think you are God. Please leave. Go." Madam Oluchi finally found her voice. "Please, Mama, I said I'm sorry, but I have a question. Who is this child's mother? Chizaram's real mother?" Chizaram's grandmother frowned. What does that have to do with this at this point? Anyway, my daughter Zirachi was her mother. She died shortly after childbirth. A sharp pain shot through Madam Oluchi's chest. She took a step forward, and her father, Chizaram's grandfather, who had been quiet, lifted his weak eyes. A young man who studied with her in the university. He traveled abroad before the child was born. He never even asked about the baby. I remember his name. His name was Chinedu Madu. Madam Oluchi's throat tightened. She said, "That's my son." She had tried to erase Zirachi from her son's life. She had forced him to study abroad, and now he was gone. And the child she had unknowingly tortured was all that remained of him. Her legs gave way. She collapsed onto the ground, gripping the dusty floor with her fingers. Oh my God, what have I done? The grandparents exchanged looks. "Madam, do you know the father?" Zirachi's grandmother asked, suspicions growing in her eyes. Madam Oluchi wiped her face. "Yes, I know him. He was my son." The room fell silent. The old woman asked, "Your son?" Madam Oluchi nodded. "Yes, but I sent him away. I told him to forget Zirachi. I thought I was protecting him, but I was just destroying everything. I made him abandon his own child. I let my grandchild suffer. I let my own blood become a slave in my house." Madam Oluchi broke into uncontrollable tears. The grandfather asked, "So you are the heartless woman who rejected my daughter? Her only offense was that she was my daughter, the daughter of a retired principal. Zirachi may have died because of you. You are wicked. So where is your son now?" Madam Oluchi sobbed louder. "He passed on in a car accident in Canada. My selfishness caused all this. I'm sorry." Chizaram stepped closer to Madam Oluchi, confused but curious. "Mommy." Madam Oluchi's head snapped up. It was the same voice that had pleaded and begged after she had mistakenly burnt her clothes. The same voice that she had ignored when she cried in hunger. The same voice that cried out in pain from a hot steaming iron. And now, that was also her granddaughter's voice. She stretched her arms towards the child. "My baby, come to me, I'm sorry." But Chizaram hesitated. Her grandmother patted her shoulder. "It's okay, Chizaram, go to her." Slowly, Chizaram took small steps forward until she was standing in front of Madam Oluchi. Madam Oluchi pulled her into a tight embrace, sobbing into her tiny shoulders. "Forgive me, please. Forgive me, my baby." The little girl didn't understand anything, but she could feel the sadness in Madam Oluchi's heart. "Mommy, don't cry," she whispered. Madam Oluchi held her tighter. She felt something familiar. She felt her son hugging her again. After that emotional moment, Madam Oluchi knew what she had to do. She had to make things right. She turned to the old couple. "Let me take her home with me. I will give her the life she deserves." Chizaram's grandmother was skeptical. "How do we trust that you won't hurt her again?" Madam Oluchi wiped her tears. "I will do anything to prove myself. Let me take care of my granddaughter, please." After much hesitation, the old couple finally agreed. But the little girl was afraid. She had known nothing but pain in that mansion. Would things be different now? The journey back home was quiet. Madam Oluchi stole glances at Chizaram, wondering how she could undo all the harm she had done. That night, she prepared a meal with her own hands, something she hadn't done in a long time. She served the food to the girl, who looked at her suspiciously. "Eat, my love, eat," Madam Oluchi said softly. Chizaram hesitated, but took a little bite. Madam Oluchi watched as she ate, a lump forming in her throat. This was just the beginning. She would spend the rest of her life making it up to her. That night, Madam Oluchi barely slept. She laid awake, watching Chizaram sleep peacefully in the soft bed she had once been forbidden from touching. Her heart ached. How could she have been so wicked? The morning came and she was determined to make things right. Madam Oluchi wanted to shower the child with love, but she quickly realized that love wasn't something she could buy. The little girl who had suffered under her hands didn't trust her yet. When Madam Oluchi tried to dress her in beautiful clothes, the child hesitated. When she cooked her favorite meals, Chizaram only ate a little, as if expecting it to be taken away from her. When she reached out to hold her hands, Chizaram flinched. She was still scared. It broke Madam Oluchi's heart. One evening, she knelt beside Chizaram. "My baby, do you hate me?" Chizaram looked away. "Mommy, I don't hate you. I just don't know if you really love me." Tears welled up in Madam Oluchi's eyes. "I do. I love you with my whole heart. I was wicked before, but I have changed. And I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." The little girl remained silent, but deep down, her heart was softening. But one thing Madam Oluchi didn't know was that despite the fact that the news of the iron accident didn't make it to the internet, people still heard about it. One day, she took Chizaram to a high-end boutique. She wanted to buy her new clothes, but when they entered, two women whispered loudly. "That's the woman who abused the child," one said. "I heard she almost killed the girl," the other added. Madam Oluchi felt the stares of people piercing into her back. The cashier smiled at Chizaram, but gave Madam Oluchi a look filled with disgust. For the first time in her life, Madam Oluchi understood what it meant to be judged. But she continued shopping. The only thing that mattered now was her grandchild. At the counter, she handed her card to the cashier. The woman hesitated before taking it. But as they walked out, little Chizaram held Madam Oluchi's hand for the first time, like someone who was trying to ease her tension. Madam Oluchi's heart swelled with hope. Back home, Madam Oluchi sat in her late son's room, holding his graduation photo. Tears streamed down her face. "My son, I'm sorry. I failed you. I destroyed your happiness. But I will not fail your daughter." She wiped her tears and made a decision. The next morning, she took Chizaram to the best school in the city and enrolled her. It was the same school she had sent her son to years ago. Chizaram was shocked. "Mommy, really? This is my new school?" Madam Oluchi smiled. "Yes, my love. You deserve the best." For the first time since she came into Madam Oluchi's house, Chizaram hugged her so tightly. And Madam Oluchi knew she was finally on the path of redemption. Madam Oluchi changed in ways she never imagined. She was no longer the cold, unfeeling woman who thought the world revolved around her wealth. Now, her days were centered around one person, her granddaughter. She employed nannies for Chizaram and gave instructions for a princess treatment at all times. She did not just provide for Chizaram, she was by her side every moment. From school drop-off to bedtime stories, even fixing her hair in the morning, Madam Oluchi did it all. Despite the fact that at first Chizaram was hesitant, she had known only wickedness from Madam Oluchi, and trusting her wasn't easy. But with time, everything became beautiful. The walls around Chizaram's heart began to break down. She laughed freely, running into Madam Oluchi's arms during school pickups, resting her head on her laps when she was afraid. Yet, there was one thing Madam Oluchi longed for the girl to call her grandma. She tried everything. "Call me grandma, my love, just once." But Chizaram would shake her head and smile. No, I will call you mommy." At first, Madam Oluchi protested. "But I'm your grandmother." Chizaram simply said, "You take care of me. You love me. You are my mommy." It was then that Madam Oluchi realized she was being given a second chance. She had failed as a mother, but life has given her an opportunity to redeem herself as a mother figure to her granddaughter. And she embraced it with her whole heart. One morning, Madam Oluchi woke up with a heavy heart. No matter how much she tried to push it aside, she knew what she had to do. She had to visit Zirachi's grave. For weeks she avoided it. The guilt was overwhelming. How could she stand before the woman she had condemned and beg for forgiveness? But it has to be done. So she gathered herself, took Chizaram, and asked Zirachi's parents to take her to the grave. The journey was quiet. When they arrived, Madam Oluchi's legs felt weak. There, under a simple tombstone, lay the woman she had once rejected. The woman she had once called a gold digger. The woman who had carried her grandchild and lost her life bringing her into the world. Madam Oluchi fell to her knees. Her hands trembled as she traced the name Zirachi on a stone. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," Madam Oluchi whispered. Her voice cracked as she spoke louder. "Zirachi, my child, I know I failed you. I did not see your worth. I did not protect you. I did not stand by you when you needed me the most. Instead, I pushed you away." Madam Oluchi covered her face and wept. Her body was shaking. Then she lifted her head and looked at the tomb again. "But you were strong. Even when I turned my back, you chose to keep her. Thank you, Zirachi. Thank you for not aborting her the way I said, because she's everything. Madam Oluchi reaching out for the little girl's hand beside her, pulling her close. Zirachi, you gave me another chance through her, Madam Oluchi continued. She calls me mommy. Can you believe that? She let out a soft laugh. She's so full of life, so intelligent just like you. Madam Oluchi wiped her tears and smiled painfully. But be rest assured, I will always tell her who you were, a strong and intelligent woman. She will know that her mother was brave. Madam Oluchi placed a gentle kiss on the cold stone. Just then, a strong wind blew through the graveyard. Madam Oluchi and Chizaram held onto each other as the wind wrapped around them like an embrace. For a moment, Madam Oluchi closed her eyes and felt something. She felt peace. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Zirachi had heard her. And Zirachi was happy. What's the moral lesson of this story? This story teaches that life has a way of teaching us lessons in the most unexpected ways. Madam Oluchi had everything, wealth, power and status, but she lacked what mattered most, love and humility. She judged people by their background, never imagining that the very person she rejected would give her life its deepest meaning. Her arrogance cost her dearly. She lost her only son. She lost the chance to embrace her grandchild's mother when she was alive. But fate, in its mysterious way, gave her a second chance through the little girl she once disregarded. This story teaches us that pride can blind us. No one is better than another because of wealth or social status. True wealth is not in riches, but in the relationship we build, the kindness we show, and the love we give. Madam Oluchi learned this the hard way. But she was lucky to still have a chance to right her wrongs. Many do not get that opportunity. So, let us not wait until life humbles us. Let us choose love. Let us choose respect and kindness today, before it's too late.